It is Obi-Wan Kenobi mid-morning. I should say Obi-Wan Kenobi Wednesday mid-morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. Let us take a gander at the vast expanse of diamond-like mind, known in Tibetan as Dorje Sempa Namka Che, composed by Prahe Vajra, known in Tibet as Garba Dorje. This was translated from the Tibetan, this is composed by Prahe Vajra, translated from the Tibetan by Namke Norbu, translated from the Italian by Adriano Clemente, adapted and amplified by yours truly. Please chant with me. The wisdom of greatness is difficult to find. It is realized through prajna and method. Though it could be said to depend on something else, real bliss originates from oneself. One moment, if you please. Okay, let's break it on down. First, we will chant these 4 lines a second time. The wisdom of greatness is difficult to find. It is realized through prajna and method. Great. What is meant by method? You'll notice here method is written in a font that appears to depict white. And that reminds us of this gal right here having a very good date. Method refers to what we notice as we breathe in. It is the opposite of concentration. So I'm going to reach for an illustration and paste it here. Please bear with me while I do that. Going to hit copy, I'm returning to the text at hand, and I'm going to hit paste. All right. Fabulous. All right, so Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. What could that suckiness look like? That suckiness looks like choosing rigidity over flexibility and choosing to indulge our controlling tendencies instead of being laid back. When people who are indoctrinated and remain indoctrinated in being rigid and controlling teach meditation, they invariably implore their students to actively focus and actively analyze. The discrete neural pathways that empower or enable those behaviors are found in very specific regions, such as the medial or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Overtrain our prefrontal cortex and we trigger our amygdala, which is the seat of anxiety and aggression. And I think we can all agree that people don't meditate because they want more of those things. People meditate because they want less. And so 90% of the time, our meditation takes a wrong turn. One moment, I must now reach for 2 other images. Please bear with me. All right, so we're going to do the old drag-a-rooney. before I do that, before I forget, let me input. Let me add another image, because that's how this brain works. 1, 2. Let's hit copy, and let's go over here and return to our text at hand. Okay, and paste. Okay, so let's hit wrap text behind. There we go. Okay. Oh, right. So, what is the object of, what is the opposite of focus or concentration? It's to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. The part of our brain, the part of our central nervous system that's wired for that, is our sympathetic nervous system, found in the middle third of our spinal cord, that we are wired to access during each inhalation, which is very, very nice. But what about this prajna business? Once again, I must fetch an image, or try to. And here we go. Yay! Okay, here we go. So what's this prajna business? Every time we relax into our exhalation, we automatically access, rephrase that. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, evolution's already wired us to access our parasympathetic nervous system ensconced within the lower third and the upper third, or I should say, divided between the lower third and the upper third of our spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to help to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. And that is prajna. See, release is not shoving away. It's releasing our resistance to the presence of what we dread, or as well as releasing our resistance to the absence of what we desire. Releasing doesn't mean those things go away. It just means that those things have less and less control over our choices and our utterances and our deeds. So now that we have a clue, the wisdom of, together let's chant, the wisdom of greatness is difficult to find. It is realized through prajna and method. So, breathing in and breathing out are pretty easy. What's the difficult part? The difficult part is if we let's hear it. I need to amplify this text, which sounds highly technical, but it really isn't. Let's see. Let's hit this button, and let's hit 24 and italic. There we go. Cowabunga. Okay. So, the wisdom of greatness is difficult to actively strive to find. What do we mean by that? Well, if we actively concentrate, that's difficult. That excites our amygdala. If we actively contemplate, that exhausts our prefrontal cortex. That stimulates or triggers the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala. So this whole false path that is defined by being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel is really unpleasant. But we pole vault over it through exhalations prajna and inhalations method. Now I'm going to do something unconventional. I'm going to reverse the methods, because in the West we kind of think about our inhalation before we think about our exhalation. So quick like a bunny, I'm going to do my best to move this about. Let's hit paste. And let's get rid of the accent because it doesn't serve us in that position. And let's move prajna, which is a fancy Sanskrit word for wisdom. In this case, it's not the cleverness to create a longer lasting light bulb, although that's Jim Dandy. This is the wisdom of release. And I'm going to strive to insert an accent there. And let's hit add to dictionary. There we go. See, things are making more sense every passing hour. So let's chant this a third time. The wisdom of greatness is difficult to actively strive to find. It is realized through method and prajna. Fabulous. Let's move on. Though it could be said to depend on something else, real bliss originates from oneself. Okay, I'm going to do something a little controversial. Please, well, should I? Yes. So, those since the Neolithic Revolution, society has conditioned all of us to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Although a minority, now I gotta reach for another piece of art, please bear with me. One, two, copy. 1, 2. Now this is going to be messy. Give me a minute. Let's go over here, hit paste, and hit wrap around behind. And there we go. All right. A minority, approximately 10% of humanity, doesn't want to follow this paradigm. Approximately 10% of humanity is really enthusiastic. They hunger and thirst to be more and more flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. So these people, these rigid, controlling, elitist people think, okay, bliss comes from devotion to a guru, or bliss comes from believing and worshiping a real or imagined entity. And those who are flexible and rational and laid back say no. The bliss of peace, the bliss of love, comes from within. We are already wired for these things. Now, I'm going to make room for 2 more pieces of art because I feel like it will illustrate the point that I'm trying haltingly to make. One is a piece of art from a previous page, so it should be relatively easy to acquire. Paste. Okay. And the next one is on I have to reach from to another document. Luckily, it's already opened. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Copy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Fabulous. Back over here. And let's put this here. Paste. Okay. So we don't have to rely upon a teacher or an entity or a ritual or anything like that. We already are wired for the bliss of release. We already are wired for the joy of love, the joy of empathy. We are already wired for these things, and we access them through inhalations method and exhalations prajna. So together, let's chant this. The wicked me said to depend on something else, for bliss originates from oneself. So I think what I'll do here is I will do the controversial thing and input an image, the stereotypical image of a teacher. Archetypical, that's the word I'm looking for. So let's hit insert and go to pictures. Let's go to device. And I'm going to hit pictures once again, going to Buddhist yoga. I'm going to scroll down to training. I'm going to scroll down to Padmasambhava. I'm going to find Yabyum. I'm going to find this image. I'm going to, ooh, look at that. That's weird, isn't it? Okay, so I'm going to hit wrap text. There we go. And now I'm all over the place. Here we go. Let's put this in front, wrap text in front, and let's go over here and see how this looks on the display. And let's do a bit of the old. Okay, one more variable. All right, excellent. Thank you for hanging out with me while I was doing that open heart surgery. So, metaphorically speaking. So, we don't have to rely on a teacher or a ritual or a supernatural entity. Simply by cooperating with our inhalations and exhalations, we can experience the peace of release as well as the bliss of empathy. Now that I've prattled on for a quarter of an hour, hey kids, let's meditate. I'm going to quickly tap button 9 and invite you to join me in a few minutes of silent meditation, wherein during our inhalation, silently and mentally, we recite the demonstrative pronoun this, thus facilitating awareness. And during our exhalation, we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, thus facilitating release. We come now to the 6th of 55 verses. Together, the great miracle is not difficult. All qualities and capabilities through subtle understanding of the authentic condition immediately arise from oneself. Fabulous. Now let's return to the first bit. Let's chant it a second time. The great miracle is not difficult. So what here is meant by the great miracle? That would be enlightenment. Now, there's a whole bunch of mythology surrounding enlightenment. And a lot of that mythology has sprung up from patriarchy, from elitism. And they say things like, oh yeah, being enlightenment takes a length of time equal to the generation and destruction of the universe 3 times. They'll say things like, oh yes, if you're enlightened, you can never have a negative thought, you can never have a painful emotion. But is that what the Buddha said? The Buddha said it's possible to master the enlightenment was simply the mastery of the Eightfold Path. And we can do that in as little as a week or 2, which is wild. So from that point of view, from the point of view of egalitarian spirituality, what is enlightenment? It's mastery of mindfulness, whose vulnerability is symbolized by the nudity in this piece of artwork. It's mastery of meditation's release, which is symbolized by the translucence inferred by this painting. It is mastery of empathy, symbolized by the beauty of the subjects of this portrait. It is mastery of the centered spontaneity, wherein our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from the centered spontaneity generated by mindfulness and meditation. So the centeredness here is symbolized by this fellow, the color of blue sky, sitting quite stably. And the spontaneity here is symbolized by his tantric partner, the color of a fluffy cloud, sporting quite enthusiastically. So the whole idea is that we're not practicing scattered spontaneity, but the centered spontaneity that flows effortlessly from mindfulness and meditation, especially if we play with it at least once every 12 hours or so. So that is the great miracle of which we speak here in this 6th verse. Please chant with me. All qualities and capabilities through subtle understanding of the authentic condition immediately arise from within oneself. So I'm going to do a quick edit. Please bear with me. So I'm going over here, and I'm going to hit, first I'm going to hit cut, and I'm going to hit paste. And now I'm going to hit cut again, and paste again. And now I'm going to add a comma. I'm not really going to use a comma. I'm going to add a space and cut again. And remove the comma and paste. I'm going to hit that. And I'm going to add an accent to the U. I think that'll work splendidly. So let's add to dictionary twice for good measure. Together. All qualities and capabilities immediately arise from within oneself through subtle understanding of the authentic condition. So let's jump back in, if we may. Let's hit copy. So what is the authentic condition? Every time we inhale, we are already wired to access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This sympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us notice vulnerably. I think I'm going to do another. Please bear with me. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's hit this. Let's hit copy. Let's go over here and replace that with this. So the authentic condition. A lot of coaches, a lot of con men separate frustrated incels from their money with the promise that if they're just authentic, they'll have all the sex they want. That's a lot of malarkey. But there's a certain power in being authentic. So, thanks to Thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, we're wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics of perception. You know, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. This is the authentic condition. Sometimes we spontaneously notice the external, other times the internal. Sometimes we randomly notice the physical, other times the mental. Sometimes we randomly notice the pleasurable, other times the painful. Sometimes we randomly notice the interesting, other times the boring. Sometimes we randomly notice the glorious, other times the grotesque. The question is, what do we do with that which we notice? Every time we exhale, we are already wired to access the parasympathetic nervous system, divided between the lower third and the upper third of our spinal cord. This is already wired for physical relaxation as well as mental release. So what do we do with that which we authentically noticed? We release our resistance towards it. That's it. That's the key, not only to the mastery of mindfulness, meditation, empathy, and centered spontaneity, but it's also the mastery of the skillful means with which we can be of service to all beings everywhere, which is quite lovely. Having thoroughly beat this poor horse to death, let us turn our attention now. Let us now take a few moments to actually meditate. So what am I going to do? Well, let's check the text to make sure. First things first, let's make sure I transcribed accurately. Meditation is relaxing without seeking. Fabulous. In the Dharmata, that does not appear visibly. Great. Let's hit a dictionary. And let's delete this. Let's go over here, make it a little bit ugly for a minute or two, and hit this. If one actively searches for it, and for something in it, the natural condition will never manifest. Well, it looks like there's two periods. So let's look at the first period. Here it goes. Very nice. Meditation is relaxing without seeking. So, real quick, I'm going to change the color of this just because that's how I roll. One, two, three, four. Okay. So let's go over here. Hit copy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Meditation is relaxing without seeking. One, two, three, four. Copy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Paste. So we've already established that when we actively analyze or actively concentrate, we exhaust our prefrontal cortex and stimulate the amygdala, which functions as the seat of both anxiety and aggression. Instead of doing that, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are already wired to access our parasympathetic nervous system. Which is divided between the lower third and the upper third of our spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. So we're using different parts of our central nervous system. This is very important. It's not our job to make it happen, but rather to let it happen. We'd want to be less like the Big Lebowski and more like the dude. So I think it could be really fun if I put an image here reflecting that. So quick like a bunny, I'm going to go into Google search. And let's hit the Big Lebowski and the Dude. And what I'm going to do is go back over here. And tap button 8. I'm now going to go to window capture. To make it more interesting for you, so you can follow along with me. So let's go back over here. So I'm looking for an image capturing both the Big Lebowski and the Dude. Well, that's the Big Lebowski. I want this little Lebowski. Let's see. Okay, I think I'll have to refine this search. So let's go over here. Big Lebowski talking to the Dude. Let's try that. Well, here is the Big Lebowski, but I'm looking for them both in the same frame. There we go. Fabulous. Seek and you shall find. Let's go over here. And let's for starters, we'll just download this, save image as. We'll put this in downloads. There it is. Save. Excellent. Now we can return to the task at hand, which is button 14. So I'm going to hit insert and pictures, this device, going to downloads, I'm going to hit wrap text behind text and scroll. Let's see how that fits. Fair to middling, fair to middling. Okay. Let's get creative. Okay, that's close enough for government work. Okay, so if you just jumped in, I was trying to illustrate something. In the seventh verse, in the seventh of 55 verses of the vast expanse of the diamond-like mind, we read that meditation is relaxing without seeking. Now, we can be like the Big Lebowski, or we can be like the dude. If we're like the Big Lebowski, we're going to try to make things happen by actively concentrating or actively analyzing. But all that's going to do is aggravate our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression, and we'll be just as cranky as the Big Lebowski. However, if you want to be laid back and mellow like the dude, instead of making things happen, we let things happen. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are already wired to physically relax and mentally release. So we have a phrase here in the Dhammata. Dhammata is a fancy Sanskrit word, and it means truth place. And that's a metaphor for the mastery of mindfulness and meditation, for the mastery of noticing and releasing, for getting so good at noticing and releasing that we can do so spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. That doesn't take long to master. You can play with it, I don't know, 15, 30, 60 minutes every 12 hours or so, and you'll get better and better and better at noticing and releasing. Let's continue. So let's chant this one more time before we move on. Meditation is seeking. Meditation is relaxing without seeking. In the Dhammata that does not appear visibly. So, what this means is the mastery of mindfulness and meditation is not something that we actively seek, but passively practice. This is a reoccurring theme. If one actively searches either for the Dhammata or for something in it, the natural condition will never manifest. Well, what do we mean by the natural condition? Amongst those, oh goodness, there we go. Bummer. One, two, three, so copy. 1, 2, 3, paste. So, Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun-tingly way. Since the Neolithic Revolution, society has trained all of us, has conditioned all of us to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. But about 10% of us are subversive. We don't want to be that way. We want to be different. We want to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. When we are rigid and when we are controlling, we try to make things happen. If we do that, if we actively search, it will never manifest. That is why instead of actively searching, we passively let go and let things happen. And this seems like another wonderful opportunity to relate to the dude and the Big Lebowski. The Big Lebowski, cranky, cranky, cranky. The dude, really laid back. This represents the Buddha's foolish cousin Devadatta. This represents the Buddha Gautama, also known as Shakyamuni. I'd rather be like Shakyamuni than Devadatta. How about you? So having explored this, let's meditate. I'm going to hit button 9. Having come to the third of four phases of mindful crease meditation, allow me to remind you that over the span of 12 inhalations, we can advance our right thumb in the following manner, beginning with our little finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If we multiply this by 4, we get 48 inhalations, which we could count on our left hand. One set of 12 inhalations, 2, 3, 4 sets of 12 inhalations each. We could keep track of this, our third set, by resting the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger upon the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce in the heart region of our chest. The most efficient way to practice mindfulness, the most efficient way to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. The most efficient way to meditate, the most efficient way to release our resistance to the absence of what we desire, as well as release our resistance to the presence of what we dread, is to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb is during each exhalation. Okay, so let's go over here. Apparently I'm on the wrong bit. Let's go over here. We come now to the 8th of 55 verses. This is the final bit we're going to explore for this live stream. So the first thing I'm going to do is check to make sure I transcribed properly, because there's many a slip between the cup and the lip. This supremely secret reality cannot be heard through the sense of hearing. Likewise, it cannot be expressed by the tongue, not even in the slightest. And we're going to add this to the dictionary. Here we go. Add to dictionary and remove this image. This is very concise, and it looks like it can fit nicely onto one page, so I think I will do that. Let's see if that fits okay on this page. It appears to. Although I think it would be much nicer if I hit this button here. Not so much. Okay, let's not do that. Let's go over here and reduce this to 10. Okay. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Copy. 1, 2, 3, and paste. Good. And now that I'm done editing, I can begin explaining. What do we mean by a secret reality? All right. The secret reality is not a literal secret, but it is a figurative secret. How does that work? Where a literal secret's like, oh man, I've got a secret, I'm not going to tell you, fuck off. No, that's not what's going on. We're saying is that the way things really are is quite different than the way things really seem. So if we are rigid and controlling, that will take us many places, but peace and wisdom and liberation are not one of them. If we are flexible and laid back, we will see it. The reason is quite simple. Exercising the prefrontal cortex is necessary to make things happen. But it makes relaxing impossible. exercising the prefrontal cortex. Why is that? Because exercising the prefrontal cortex stimulates the amygdala, which is the seat of anxiety and aggression. However, being laid back well, that was a boo-boo. Noticing vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, fleetingly is going to give us different results. Noticing vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, fleetingly is going to make it much, much easier for us to access our parasympathetic nervous system, which has already evolved to help us both physically relax as well as mentally release. Now, if I must sound like a parrot repeating himself, this is a reoccurring theme. This fellow here, this naked guy in a cave in the Swat Valley, Prahe Vajra, this great reformer of Buddhism, saw people drowning, enthusiastic people being hoodwinked by the path of yang, being hoodwinked, being drowned in their own amygdala. When freedom from that is so much easier. So, the freedom we seek cannot be described by the intellect because it is not experienced by the intellect. It is experienced by the viscera. That is one of the reasons for the popularity of Laughing Buddha. I'm going to find an image of Laughing Buddha right now. So quick like a bunny, I'm going to hit button 8. And I'm going to drag his kicking and screaming to the search engine. LAUGHINGBUDDHA. Okay, let's find, that's a nice one. Let's look at that right there. Let's go over here. And let's hit save image as. And that should take us to the downloads. Let's hit LAUGHINGBUDDHA and hit save. And now let us return to button 14. And let us insert pictures of this device. Okay, let's go over here for all files. Okay, let's hit Laughing Buddha, see if that opens. It doesn't. Well, okay. So there's a fix for that. Let's go to Paint. Let's open up Laughing Buddha. And so much for that fix. I'm not as think as I smart I was. So let's return to button 8 and find a better picture. Okay. So we're back over here. Laughing Buddha wallpaper. That's usually a higher quality. Okay, let's try this bad boy right here. This is a better one. Let's go over here, see if we can't download this. Let's hit save image as. Good. LAUGHING Buddha 2. Let's hit save. Okay. Back over here. Wow, that was the wrong button, wasn't it? Okay, so let's go over to 14. Let's hit insert. All right. Let's hit wrap text. Okay, close enough for government work. What's the point I was trying to make? So, someone cannot tell us what it's like to let go. We cannot hear it. They cannot express it because the part of the brain that analyzes will never know. All it will know is fatigue, anxiety, and aggression. But the part of the brain that can release is pre-verbal. It evolved prior to the capacity for speech. This is wild. But every time we relax into our exhalation, it is available to us. And that is the great benefit of the archetype of the laughing Buddha, whose belly is bigger than his head, to remind us of the greatness of the viscera, what we can learn from our own guts, from our own spilkas, if you like Yiddish. So what I'd like to do with you now is return to our practice text, the fourth and final phase of mindful crease counting meditation. Wrong button. Let's try that again. So, over the span of 12 inhalations, we can advance our right thumb in the following way, beginning with our little finger. 1, 2, oopsie, let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Multiply that by 4 and you have a total of 48 inhalations. To do that, we use our left hand to count sets of 12 inhalations each. 1 set, 2 set, 3 set, 4 sets of 12 inhalations each for a total of 48. To keep track of this, our fourth phase, and our final phase of this mid-morning's meditation, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger upon the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce in the crown region of our head. Allow me to remind you that the most efficient way to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation. Similarly, the most efficient way to meditatively release our resistance to the absence of what we crave, and to also and also to release our resistance to the presence of what we dread, is to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation. So let us practice together right now. I hope you have benefited from the time we've spent together. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 6.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.